I did it. I have finally reached 400,000 power. It took a lot of effort. It took a lot of sleepless. Okay, I can't say that because I did sleep pretty well. But essentially, previously I made a 300,000 power guide, and today I'm making a follow-up to that and addressing on how I've reached 400,000 power. However, before watching this video, I want to say that the methods to reaching from 300,000 to 400,000 are very different to reaching 300,000 in the first place. So if you do not have 300,000 first, I would recommend going back to that video. I'll try to link it in the description so I don't forget, or in the comments somewhere, and watch that first, because this goes into more advanced techniques on how you can squeeze just that a little bit much power from your runes, your monsters, your account, and stuff like that. And it is very different and sometimes even counterintuitive to the tips provided in the previous one. So if you haven't reached 300,000 yet, I recommend sticking to that guide. And once you've followed that one and are comfortably looking at upgrading towards 400,000 mark, you can come back to this one and see the tips that I've listed as well. This might be a long video, or I might even split it into two parts, as I'll try to go into a little bit of detail for each method. That I've written like 10 of them in total, which I've seen that helped me progress from 300,000 to 400,000. I'm not gonna address all the main methods of how I've reached power. So for example, if I just enter any stage just to look at the stats, I know like path of growth is a good way. So for example, the light one, yeah, I think this won't show any advantages. So yeah, I've already covered the main ways how to get power in the previous 300,000 guide, and today I'm only gonna go over the methods that I've used from 300,000 to 400,000. So yeah, to get started. Okay, and the first step to maximizing your power and getting that extra power squeeze out of your possible unit is to focus on awakening units beyond level 9. Why I say beyond level 9 is because up until level 9, all awakenings cost essence and breath of lives, whereas starting at level 10, your awakenings will start costing some monster pieces for the certain monster that you are trying to awaken. And although getting to 9 is pretty cheap, starting with 10, especially for Nat 4s and above, the pieces will be a little harder to get. For Nat 4s, you may be able to max a unit pretty fast, and like if you summon quite a bit, I'd say with some luck, you are definitely able to max it out in a month or two. But for Nat 5s that weren't in events, so like Bastet, for example, for Karambits, I've done a big summoning session and I only got one dupe. However, that one dupe allowed me to upgrade him to level 11. And that jump from level 9 to level 11 gained me around 3 to 4,000 power. And if you do that with all of your units, you are looking at a pretty decent power increase, as well as just making the overall unit stronger. And remember that it is better to focus on a few units and build them really well, rather than spread your builds over multiple units that you may not use eventually. For example, I currently only use like 6 units at all times, I think. So these 3 being my main team, she's sometimes in my damage teams. He's well, these two only have one use, and they are in my Naraka team. So either this or this guy include, and the Kroa is in my raid team. So like Foggy Prison, Naraka, and what's it called, the Mythos one. So try to focus on only a few units and max them out, including the pieces. And this comes into another point, is that you should start summoning for dupes rather than new units. I'd say making an exception to this is only if the unit is super OP and has a lot of potential in the future. So for example, for Ravens, I wouldn't put them in that category as, for example, the Water and the Wind Ravens. Like the Wind one is good, but it's definitely not someone that you must have in order to progress in the game. The Desert Queen is a different story, since she is one of the best strippers in the game. So if you do really want her, this banner is a good idea to get her. However, you should start prioritizing summoning dupes for the few net 5s and net 4s that you have. And as in dupes, I mean taking advantage of the altar's blessing. And if you didn't know, this is the blessing where you can put 3 different net 5s and 8 different net 4s to basically increase their chance of summoning. So as you can see, I have my Fire Raven, which I of course use pretty much everywhere in PvE and even in some PvP content. I put here the water or the Fire Vampire, because I feel like he has potential and eventually I want to skill him up. And my Chivo, which I'm gonna be using as my main stripper, so I naturally want some skill ups for him. As for net 4s, those will be a little harder to pick, since not a lot of net 4s, like it will be hard to find 8 good net 4s that you plan on using. For me, it was very much Groa, the Water Hull, and the Water Lich. I guess some use for the Wind Marshal Cat. The rest of the 4 are pretty much fodder that I just had to fill, because you must fill all slots in order for the blessing to work. And what the blessing does is essentially it boosts your rate of summoning that monster or that dupe by a lot. So let's find one of the dupes if we can. Let me see which one. Fire Vampire, for example. So a regular net 5 would have a 0.009% chance to summon, while a blessing one will have a way higher chance. That's what I'm looking at, like 15 times higher chance on average. So 0.14 for each mystical skull. And this applies to both mystical, legendaries, and transcendence summons. So even for transcendence, for example, since it's a 100% chance to get a net 5, and the blessing makes up for 40% of the total chance. So each dupe that you put there has a roughly 14% chance, roughly 14% chance to summon that dupe. And summoning those dupes allow you to greatly increase the awakening levels. And I believe when I had my Bastet on the current runes at level 9, since I recently reset her to get some skill ups back, uh, she was at around 100,000 power, so that alone increased her power by a little over 10,000. And if you do that for all 3 of your units, you are potentially looking at like a 20 to 30,000 power increase based on the which natural star rating they have. So Konami, of course, will have a little lower improvement since she's a nat 3, but for nat 4s and nat 5s, that improvement will be way higher. And coming right back to that point, which sort of ties into it, is at this point, if you have a lot of that power already maximized from other sources, you should start prioritizing scrolls as rewards in your events whenever possible. So not all of them will allow you to choose rewards, but for events that do, you should definitely prioritize them. So for example, for the Professor's Luna, for these rewards, naturally you should be going for the scrolls. The order in which you should go are already covered in the Luna's Candy Guide, but whenever possible, you should take advantage and buy out all of the scrolls that are available to you, since all of the other materials, like all 5 of these, you can easily get, well, not easily, but you can get through in-game, whereas scrolls are sort of limited, and you can only get a few from regular gameplay. So you should always be prioritizing these, as more scrolls equals more chances to get dupes, and more dupes means way more power to your current monsters. So for example, this event, for this event, similar to that, I'm only buying mystical scrolls. I think I bought like 10 or 15 already here. And as other items I've checked, they're not that good value, so it's pretty easy to choose a mystical scroll from this one. And yeah, going over to our next point, we're sort of done with summons for now, and I'm gonna be jumping into the next. One of the biggest things is actually getting these gems. You have a lot of options for improving your gear and your runes. So for gear, you have gems and effect stones. And for runes, you currently have the ability to apply effect with effect stones and enchant them with books. The reason I say focus on gems first is, first of all, the gems can be reused on any unit. So whenever you feel like switching or you get an upgrade, you'll be able to remove all of your gems for a little gold cost. So for purple tier gems, I believe it's like 35,000. For lower tiers, it's way less. I think blue ones are like only 7,000 or something like that. So you are able to reuse those gems, and because you are able to reuse them, you can afford to craft higher tier ones. I haven't crafted the master tier, as I could definitely afford them, but I simply do not want to level to master, as that is a lot of work. I will eventually do it, but I think the purple ones are a good way to start, especially at the level 5 one, where the red ones, and level 6 where the blue ones are unlocked. I haven't unlocked the 7 one, but I'll explain in a second why. So in this game, certain stats have a little more value when going towards power than others. So the first 3 stats, attack, defense, and HP, actually contribute to your power a lot, and you will see this if you switch some runes around. So for example, if you have a crit damage set here, rather crit damage rune, and switch it to, for example, HP or attack, in a lot of cases, given the similar substats, your power will increase quite a bit. And you'll also see this if you are applying, for example, effect stones. So attack speed or crit rate ones will have a way lower power increase than defense, HP, and attack ones. So some stats simply gain way more power from their stats, and essentially you'd like to maximize those if you are going for the highest possible power. This is also why units like tanks are in most cases higher power than your damage dealers, because units like Bastet, who mostly need defense and HP to be tanky, will have way more power than, for example, your Karambit, who focuses on attack speed, crit rate, crit damage, stuff like that, because those stats simply provide less value towards the overall power. It's not a big difference, but the difference is there, so it is definitely noticeable. And yeah, to summarize, which equipment I recommend enhancing and which gems or books I recommend. For gems, I would recommend unlocking level 6, as this will allow you to craft red and blue gems at purple tier, and you will use these for a long time, so it's definitely a worthy upgrade. Level 7 gems actually affect mostly stats like precision, accuracy, stuff like that. Let me try it if I can find them. Yeah, monster attack speed, monster precision, monster accuracy. Since those stats give way less value than attacks and HPs, If you do have a level 7, it's worth crafting these, but you will definitely get away with crafting the level 3 ones and with the blue tier, as the stats simply will not provide you that much value for the cost as the red and blue ones would. If you really don't feel like upgrading to level 5 or level 6, at least try to go for the level 3 ones and craft a few gems for each of your equipments. So for which stats you are looking for is, for the red ones, attack percentage will be the most gain. I didn't bother crafting too many of these. I think I only have one attack and the rest were crit rate and crit damage. But if I were to switch these to attack, I would get a little bit more power. And keep in mind that these affect your monsters, not your summoner or not their weapon. So these gems, basically whenever you equip one gem, they will affect all 3 units in your team, and the power gain will be way higher than applying stuff like books, stuff like those effect stones, etc. As for blue ones, the main ones you should focus on are defense percentage and HP percentage. In my opinion, HP percentage is, first of all, a little bit better overall for a stat, and uh, it will grant you a little bit more power than defense. However, the difference is not too big, so whichever one you get will definitely still work. And for the green ones, it will of course it depends on the comp you are running. So for example, I like to uh, use my karambit a lot, so I tried to get some attack speed ones more often, but I simply didn't craft a lot of them. So 2 of them have attack speed, 1 of them has precision, 1 of them has accuracy. But for green ones, since you are most likely going to be crafting blues unless you have the level 7 already unlocked, you can just focus whatever stats you get there to not waste too many resources. And now for the other 3, so the, I believe, effect stones. So for effect stones and for both of the ones you equip on runes, so the books, I believe, and the effect, I recommend crafting the lowest tier ones, or maybe if you have the disposable resources, you can go for the green ones. Simply because, first of all, the stat differences for the stats you get are not too big. So for example, as you can see, the blue one will give you 2.2 crit rate, whilst a red one, well, not the blue one, but the blue rarity will give you 2.2 crit rate, whilst a regular gray one will give you like up to 1.5. So the difference of 0.7 crit rate compared to the cost increase for crafting those effect stones is definitely not worth it. And mostly because you cannot reuse these. You can only reuse gems. All other 3 materials, like so these are stones, and then you get effect stones and books, are simply not reusable. So definitely don't overspend on crafting the highest tier ones, as you will just lose out on unnecessary resources. For books, I went with the green ones, and a lot of them are actually the gray ones as well. And for the power stones or galaxy stones, whatever they're called, I went for the gray ones and simply try to get a little bit of HP, defense, and attack whenever possible. If not possible, I went for the other stats, but those do increase way less compared to the HP. So for average values, from what I can say is, for example, the HP, uh, this 1.6% HP gem would increase your power at around 200, I'd say. Defense ones with similar value would increase around 180, in some cases like 150, depending on the base stats of your unit. And for attack, it's similar to defense, and it increases like 1.5 attack will increase, for example, Karambit's power by like 150 to 160. So if you equip all of those on all 6 runes, you are looking at potentially 1000 power upgrade there. Additional same 1000 power increase from the books as well. And for the equipment stones, it's of course way less since it only affects the summoner, but it's also extra power that you are missing out since you can equip it on all three, no, not all three, all 10 of your equipment pieces. So you do have the ability to buff up your summoner just that extra bit. As you can see, I've switched weapons recently, so not all of mine still have the effect stones applied, but I'll eventually get to that. And yeah, so for gems, try to get the highest tier possible. For the rest, settle with the gray or the green ones. Don't overspend for the blue and higher tier ones. And for the next best power increase, in my opinion, is finally going towards the transcendence of your summoner. So on average, I've found that each level of transcendence will increase your power by around 4 to 5,000. As you can see, the transcendence alone, for example, from the level 2 to level 3, will increase your power by 1.6k. But you still get 2 extra levels for your summoner, which when leveled up, you will get additional power on top of that. So on average, it goes to around 4 to 5,000 per transcendence level. So yeah, for transcendence, you do need these energy pieces for 3 different colors. So the harmony, transcendence, chaos. There are multiple ways to get them. So first of all, you can sometimes get the full pieces as well as a few shards from both the Sunken Ruins and Sky Island. However, by far the best place to get them is the Path of Growth. For most of you, you will notice that if you have Empowering Runes, you will have a lot of purple ones owned. So for example, I'm currently struggling with the green and red ones. Whilst purple, I have 14 full of these, and I'm currently sitting at almost 400 purple pieces, while the other ones are a bit lacking. And the way you get these is if you are sitting on a majority of purple ones, that's because you've been farming the rune dungeons a lot, and the transcendence pieces drop from whichever dungeon has the bonus. And as you can see, you can drop up to 3 of the purple ones here, whilst the other colors will drop from the other 2 dungeons. So Path of Training will have the red ones, and Subjugation will have the green ones, so whichever the boss has the bonus. On average, I've calculated that you get around 1 transcendence piece per run. So not all of them will have a drop, however some runs will drop 2 or 3 pieces, and for my calculations, after doing like 50 to 60 runs, specifically counting these, I've gotten like 50 pieces. So on average, it will equal to around 1 piece per run. So if you do want to calculate how much it takes to transcend your summoner, so for example, in my case, I need a total of 60 of these transcendence pieces. I already have a total of 21, so I would need 39 transcendence pieces. Each piece costs 5 fragments, I believe, to craft. Let me just recheck that. Yeah, so 39, let me calculate, 39 times 5, that will be 195 pieces. So given the 1 piece per run drop chance, I would essentially need to do the according dungeons, so for me, Path of Training and Subjugation, around 200 times in total to basically get that third Transcendence level going. So yeah, for the power gain, it's definitely a pretty decent one. However, it mostly focuses on your summoner. So keep in mind that whatever progress you make towards Transcendence will only work for that specific summoner. And if you plan on switching to a different one or simply play with multiple ones, that power increase will not carry over. So definitely only do it if you are focusing on a specific summoner and mostly play with one summoner. Otherwise, you are losing on a potentially other possible upgrades by going for this one. Okay, and for the next method, this will mostly be addressing your account level and how you can boost it even higher than just regularly leveling your monsters. So For account level, of course, the higher your account level is, the more account skills you will have, and these skills are super important because when invested into the bottom monster tree, the power increase for each upgrade you get is quite significant. So especially for the green stats that give you base powers to attack, defense, crit, stuff like that, these will in most cases increase by 1 to 2,000 for each upgrade. Some upgrades will not give you stats, so the stats that you not give an actual in-game stat will not work. So for example, monster's evasion will give me stats. However, stuff like crit rate resistance, it is not a stat for the monster, it's just an overall account stat. So it will not give you any power, however, it will buff your team up. And how you increase these account levels is basically just leveling up your units using these skill potions or angel mods or whatever ones you currently have. You will need a lot of these. So first of all, if you haven't done this already, make sure to level up your units to whatever maximum level possible without evolving them. If you have a majority of nat 4s and pretty much all nat 3s, nat 2s, and nat 1s already summoned, you should get your account level to around, I'd say 45, maybe if you have more summons closer to 50. And it will allow you to invest a lot of points into your account skill tree. Once you are done with that, you'll actually want to go even further, and the best way to do it for me was to sort it by grade, I believe, and I went for 1, 2 stars. As you can see, I currently do not have any since I already did it. But start with 1 stars and then move over to 2 stars and evolve them until they are 3 stars. And once they are 3 stars, they will have the ability to level up to level 30, and that way you can gain additional level up potential. And once you keep leveling up those 1 and 2 stars, you will be hitting even higher account levels from there on. As you can see, yeah, all my 1 stars are sitting at level 3. Why I'm saying to do 1 and 2 stars is first of all because the cost for evolving them is pretty low compared to 3 stars and above. And second of all, you will have a lot of monster pieces, so you're not using any devil mons for, not devil mons, but angel mons for evolutions that you might want to do for other units that you actually use in the future. Once you are done with leveling your 1 and 2 stars to 3 stars, you can even move on to 4 stars. However, this will naturally require you a little bit more resources. The gold is not the problem in this case, it's mostly the breadth of lives. But once you have the disposable resources for that, definitely move on to evolving to 3 stars and even 4 stars. Focus on 1 and 2 star units first. You can go for the 3 star ones later on. Let me see if I can find any 3 star unit real quick. Yeah, so this one. This is because the evolution materials for 3 stars will be a little harder to come by. So for each 3 star you need 4 rainbow mons, but as you can see I only have like 120, and that's from the whole time playing the game, as well as only using those rainbow mons on a few 3 star units. So currently I only have Konamiya and Shannon, and it looks like I have four units built, and I'm already running pretty low on 3 star rainbow mons, so definitely don't overspend on those. But for natural 1 and 2 star units, definitely try to evolve them to 3 stars, and if you can afford to 4 stars and level them up to get those additional account levels. You'll definitely be able to get like 3, 4, maybe 5 account levels with higher power-ups. Okay, and the next point I'm gonna mention for increasing our power overall is slowly switching from nat 2 and nat 3 units into nat 4 and nat 5 units. There are several reasons for this. So first of all, the nat 4 units have a little higher skill up amounts compared to net 3 units and below. So for example, while my Economia has like 3 skill ups, 10, 17, other units have 3, 10, 17, 18. So that extra skill up on a net 5 is already like on average 1.5 to 2000 power extra. And if you account that for all 3 units, so for example, Bastet Karambit Lulu for my case, that's you're looking at around 4 to 5,000 extra power just from that. The second reason why you would want to switch from net 4s to from net 3s rather to net 4s and net 5s is because of the book effects. I already mentioned this previously, but if you didn't know, units that are 1, 2, and 3 stars have book effects that affect your whole account, whereas units who are net 4s and net 5s only affect themselves. This means that, for example, if I use a Economia, let me find him. Yeah, I currently have him at level 6, and his book effect provides 21 defense to all water monsters on my account. However, starting with net 4s and net 5s, these book effects will only affect the unit itself. So if I take, for example, a Lolo, I currently have her at level 3. This means that from the book alone, Lulu gets 728 HP extra and 2 extra resistance, which will of course increase way higher the more dupes you get. On top of that, the Lulu also has the effect that Konamiya had, because this effect affects the whole account's water monsters. This means that simply you are getting a free book effect for any dupes that you have for a monster that you use, meaning that this extra HP and resistance or any other stat that other units have, so for example Demon will have attack, and it basically varies for each monster, but that is an additional power increased based on the unit that you use. My best example would probably be Bastet, because I have her at level 10 and the bonus you get from that is huge. So just from the book effects itself, if she didn't have any runes, anything like that, she would be getting a free 6000 HP and 17 resistance, which actually boosts her power by a lot. I can't tell the exact amount, however I can see the average of it. So the book effect consists of 5.6% of her overall power. So at 113,000 power, we're looking at around 6,000 power just from the book itself. And you can imagine that if you have a lot of dupes for the 3 units you are using, so for example, Bastet Gambit Lolo is what I use for some dungeons, just having those dupes alone will boost your power by probably, if you have decent book levels close to Bastet's, you're potentially looking at like 10 to 15,000 extra power just from the book alone. So yeah, this just sort of ties into the point that you should go for dupes, not only because of awakening levels that you can get from them using pieces, but also because their book effects simply boost your base stats by quite a bit, and those base stats will boost your overall monster's power by quite a bit. And now for the last 3 points, I would classify these as not too important. However, I did them and they did grant me that little power increase from going from 300,000 to 400,000. So I do want to address them as well. And to quickly go over them, the first one has to do with the spirals of attention. So basically, if you have been investing in the summon power, which you should have invested in mostly the summon power upgrades for all of your monsters, is these affect not your summoner but your monster, meaning that the average power you get from summon powers compared to, for example, the immemorial power is usually 3 to 4 times higher on average. So if you have been investing in summon power recently, you may want to look into upgrading immemorial power a bit as well, First of all, because the cost for a single upgrade is getting quite high at this point. For me, for example, the HP upgrade of level 18 already costs 5,000 green tokens and 2.5 thousand of the yellow tokens, whereas the Summoner's Power, if you have lower levels, so like the first or the second rotation of these upgrades, they will be quite cheap, and in some cases one upgrade's worth of currency for this one might upgrade you like 4 or 5 upgrades in the Immemorial power tree. And although you will get a little less power from this, so whereas with summon power you'd get like 400 to 500 power increase overall, with Immemorial power you may be looking at a 100 to 150 power increase. However, it does stack up, and once you upgrade these cheap ones on the Immemorial power, you do get a decent chunk of power to it. You will actually, unlike other upgrades in the game, you will not see the power improvement little notification pop up. However, once you improve it, and if you come back to the menu of your game, you will see that your power did indeed increase. I'm not sure why that's the case, but that might be just some kind of a hidden stat, the way they process the Spire of Ascension's upgrades, where it simply doesn't show the amount you gain. But yeah, for the one of the methods, that's that. The second method is the doing your summoner skills and slash or investing into skills that are not too important, purely for the power gain. I actually covered something similar in my recent Cleave skill guide, whereas previously I had all of my points invested into either this tree, a few upgrades here, and my damage abilities here. But after switching, I invested into mostly the first and the third skill, whilst keeping these three not upgraded at all. This allowed me to invest a lot of points into various upgrades here and actually gain way more power compared to what I would spend for this skill. So because these skills get quite expensive, so I think I had like level 7 upgrades for a lot of those, and each of them cost like 50 to upgrade alone, so that's like 70 in total cost. And you could actually spend those points to get way more upgrades in these two trees, allowing you to get a little bit more power whilst sacrificing a little bit of damage and accuracy effects from this tree. And overall, after switching all of my skills, I managed to gain around 3 to 4,000 power from upgrading all these random abilities, whilst not feeling too much effect due to these, because the basic ability as well as the second skill for the build that I was using was not too important. If you are using a different summoner, you'll of course have to decide whether all three skills are important for you. And this will ultimately depend on both the summoner you are going for and the element you mainly use. But from what I found, I personally do not focus too much on the damage, so I did not invest into the first skill, or rather the base attack, a lot. As well as the second skill, I mostly use the water cleave, so the second skill of the water cleave was not too useful for me. So I didn't invest in that, and instead I went for additional upgrades here, being able to get way more power that way. And the last tip I would have is, once you start doing elite raids, you will be getting a little bit better gear. However, even if the stats look good on it, in a lot of cases those good stats will not provide a lot of power. So my tip would be, first of all, to not overspend on your gear upgrades. So for example, I currently only have one 5-star level 4 awakening weapon. I actually have a lot of items with 4-star awakening levels. I mean, a lot of them are purple, but I also have a legendary gem, and while this looks pretty good, I mean, the resistance stats is a shame, but well, while this does look good, the power you actually lose from the upgrade, even when upgraded, would be higher than what I would get from this ring. First of all, of course, because the main stat of HP has way more power value than the resistance. And second of all, because the stats usually stats like accuracy and evasion, and for example, flat stats simply have way lower value than the percentage stats, uh, causing you to get overall lower power. But a good general rule of thumb, I would say, is to whenever you get a new item, even at level 1, try to switch it for a current one you have. So for example, I have this ring, and if I see that the power drop is, for some gear it differs, but for the active weapon you use, I'd say the power drop should be somewhat lower than 4000. If it's higher than 4000, even while upgrading to level 9 or level 12 and equipping those gems, in most cases it will not be higher power. That means you've now wasted a lot of first of all gold and some sky stones to upgrade that, even maybe even durability stones if failed along the way. And in the end you will notice that the power you gained, or rather not gained but even lost, simply gets outshined by the current weapon that you already had, even if it had better stats. In most instances, it's not worth losing that power, especially for weapons that you do not use. So just whenever you get new gear, so for example, I have this current red weapon. This is not my active weapon. That means I'm looking at the lower power decrease when I equip, and as you can see, I get 3000. Just to test it, I can calculate that one upgrade will give me around 43 power. Uh, Once it goes to level 3 or level 6, on average, one substat increase will give me on a non-active weapon around 200 to sometimes 400. That means if I, for example, upgrade to level 9, I'm looking at a decent 1000 power here. 9 upgrades will give me another like 400 power here, and 400, not 4000. And equipping each gem will give me a decent 200 to 300 each. That means this weapon would increase by a little over 2000, and since it decreased around 4000 in the first place, uh, it will be an overall power decrease from the weapon that I currently had. So this is sort of hard to describe on how you can calculate this, and you will need to sort of remember how much power each equipment or weapon gives on average. So what I found for the main weapon, that's around 500, 5000 mark, somewhere 4 to 5000 mark. Uh, for the shield, it's pretty similar since it counts as an active item at all times. For accessories, it's a bit less because you do not have any gems like you do with the weapons and shields. But for accessories, in most cases, it's around 3 to 4000 before it's worth upgrading. So if the power drop is higher than that benchmark that you've set, it is not even worth upgrading some items. And as you can see, in most cases, after just checking them, a lot of my items are not even upgraded past level 1 because the power you lose after checking, so you can see 5000 power lost, there's no way I'm getting that even with plus 12, and it's simply not worth wasting your resources on. So my tip would be to frequently try to change your gear. However, if you see that the item has a really low chance of increasing your power or will not increase your power at all, simply don't waste your resources and save them for when you are able to get that guaranteed upgrade, which you can see will improve your power. So for example, I had the 4-star light weapon. Whenever I switched the level 1 weapon to light, I only lost like 800 power, so I instantly knew that after upgrading to like level 9 and equipping some gems, as well as unequipping the gems from the previous weapon, I would be looking at a solid power increase, and in the end, at plus 12, it increased my power by around, I believe, 5 to 6,000. So that was an instant green light to upgrade the weapon. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all of the tips I have for increasing your power from that 300,000 to 400,000 benchmark. I'll try to see if I remember along the way while I'm editing a few more tips, so I'll make sure to record that. If not, and I remember them a bit later, I'll try to post it in the comments at least. And I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope I explained everything pretty well, I hope. I mean, if I didn't, feel free to ask in the comments. I'll try to go a bit further into what I meant with each certain point. And yeah, by the way, I got an idea from someone in game yesterday to ask maybe people will have certain suggestions on what content you'd like to see, as I'm mostly aiming it at people to just learn the basics of the game basically and how to improve. So if you do have ideas, make sure to post them in comments as well. I'll try to look into whether it's something I'm knowledgeable in, and I would for sure be able to make a video on it. And yeah, that's about it, and see you.